Hello and good morning. Welcome to the last lecture for this week. And this is the final lecture for neurological examination. And now, this lecture basically I include to discuss the last thing, but an important structure called as cerebellum. So, this one will be about cerebellum or cerebellar examination. Okay. Now, what is cerebellum? Um, Cerebellum is, you can say, developmentally, it is a part of the hindbrain, and the cerebellum is located in the posterior fossa. And what is there? This one have three parts. You can say the left one, the right one, and the middle one. Okay. So basically, one of the thing which is very easy to remember about cerebellum is um, like the other tracks, they cross over the corticospinal, posterior columns, and this one. Cerebellum or cerebellar tracts, they don't cross over, rather, they stay on the same side. Okay. So, the cerebellar hemispheres are on side. So, the right cerebellar hemisphere, right cerebellar hemisphere control the right side of the body, and left control the left side of the body, and the middle part is called as vermis. It controls the axial or the center of the body. Simply, very easy to remember. And now cerebellum have a lot of tracts, like simply uh, it have connections with the cranial nerves, with the motor fibers, with the sensory fibers. So like it have a lot of connections. And the principal function which cerebellum is performing, as I told you, is coordination. Though it is not the only function, of course, it do provide other functions as well. So there are other functions as well. And as I told you, there are what happens, like many of the things we have discussed in the previous lecture, but uh, whenever there is damage to the cerebellum, so the patients, they present with a number of symptoms, and there are different mnemonics to remember them. Like one of the mnemonic is called as Danish, Danish, Danish or Danishers. Okay, so D is for like dysdiadochokinesia, A is for ataxia, N is for nystagmus, I is for intention tremors, S is for speech problems, and H is for hypotonia. So like many mnemonics are there. So simply whenever there is any issues with the cerebellum, there is hypotonia, there is speech problems like dysarthria is there, and there is problem with the judgment of distances or the range of movement, and that's why there is past pointing, which I was showing you in the previous video. When they do a finger nose test, there could be past pointing. So that is called as dysmetria, when you cannot judge the depth, the distance, and things like this. So hypotonia, dysarthria, dysmetria, dysdiadochokinesia, which is inability to perform uh, rapid alternating movements. Intention tremors will be there. Ataxia will be there. Okay. So of course, like all these things, you can remember by the name, by this mnemonic, Danishers, and all these things, right? So, uh, talking more about cerebellum, like the patients, when they complain of clumsiness, okay, most of the patient times, the cerebellar problems, they complain of clumsiness, okay, or problems with coordination. So think about what you can say, a cerebellar condition is there, or perform, or it's an indication, you can say it's an indication to perform the cerebellar examination, okay. So that's a very important point. So then we go and we examine, do the examination of cerebellum, right? So simply remember, like if the right side of the body is showing cerebellar signs, means right side of the cerebellum is gone. If the left side of the body is showing cerebellar signs, that means left side of the body, side of the cerebellum is gone, right? So we do this thing. So I will keep on stopping the video, which I will be playing now, and I will be keep on telling you what they are checking, why they are checking, okay. So I will keep on adding the points, okay. And this video is again I took from the website I told you, not a website, but a channel called as Geeky Medics, who make videos for the medical students especially. But before going to that, what are the problems, what are the things which can cause cerebellar conditions? So you can say causes of cerebellar diseases, again there are mnemonics. I remember the things because by mnemonics, so I know a lot of mnemonics, but really I don't want to put you in this difficulty, okay. So now cerebellum diseases can be due to depending on what part of the cerebellum is gone, okay. So sometimes the conditions are unilateral, like just one part of the cerebellum is gone. Sometimes the conditions are bilateral, means all the cerebellum is gone. Or sometimes the problem can be in the midline structure. So it means like the midline of the cerebellum is involved. So simply the problems can be unilateral, half of the body, bilateral, both sides of the body, or midline. Because as I told you, the vermis control the midline. So whenever the pathology is in the vermis, so it means like the center part of the cerebellum is gone. So whenever the condition is unilateral, means one lobe of the cerebellum is uh, disturbed or affected or have pathology. It could be a space occupying lesion. I like this term space occupying lesion because it covers a lot of terms. It's an umbrella term which covers a lot of things. For example, anything which is occupying a space, we call it a space occupying lesion, like a tumor, like a abscess, like a granuloma, like simply because they occupy space, so they behave like a, or even a hematoma, right, like a collection of the blood. That's a space occupying lesion. It could be ischemia, okay. You will study a condition called as multiple sclerosis. They can cause cerebellar condition, as well as trauma. Trauma is a thing which will come everywhere. When the condition is bilateral, which means like both of the lobes of cerebellum is gone or involved, then the conditions could be drugs. A drug called as phenytoin, it affects the cerebellum. Alcohol. So the people who abuse alcohol, like they have thiamine deficiency, so it do affect the cerebellum. Hypothyroidism affect the cerebellum. There are different paraneoplastic syndromes. What are these? In many of the cancers, there are certain other systemic um, presentations of that condition. We call them as paraneoplastic syndrome. So again, like trauma could be the cause, okay, and many others, like there are some things which, like, okay, of course, like, sorry, I forget about that. Again, a space occupying lesion, okay. Occupying lesion is a very important cause, okay, uh, which should come on the top, by the way, okay. Then there are certain conditions, like right now you won't understand, like Friedreich's ataxia is there, uh, multiple sclerosis can damage. There is something called as Arnold-Chiari malformation, which can be the cause of bilateral cerebellar conditions. And when the condition is midline, again, the thing is quite easy. Like it could be you can say a midline tumor, right, which is affecting the midline. So these are the causes of cerebellar disease. Now let's start watching the video, and I will keep on adding the points as we go.
Hi, I'm David. I'm one of the medical students. Thanks for coming in today. Can I ask your name and date of birth, please?
My name's Grace Farrington. I was born on the 26th of January 1990.
Okay, Grace. I'd like to test your coordination today. It's going to involve me watching you walking and moving your arms and legs, and also testing your eyes. Would that be okay?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to start by asking you to walk for me.
Okay, now if you will see, like this guy, he started in the same way, wiper. W is for wash your hands, I is for introduction, and then P is for permission. Okay, so if you can see, introduction with permission, you can say, and P for permission and position. In this one, like of course, like position is not important because you will be examining the eyes, you will examine the tremors, you will examining the gait, and see how we explain the things. Like when you talk to the patient, you don't say, "I'm going to test your cerebellar functions," because the patients, they don't know what is cerebellum, right? They just know one thing, that is called as brain. So you have to tell the patient in their language that what you are going to do. You want to see them walking, you want to see their hands, you want to examine their eyes, and like this way, like explain in simple ways, you can see, right? So that's what he did.
So if you start by just walking towards this wall for me. That's right. And just turn. And now if you can walk with one foot in front of the other, back to the other wall. That's great, thank you.
So, see, he started by examining the gait of the patient, right? So the important thing to know about this thing, and if you have seen, they say like if there is tandem gait is important to check because it can exaggerate the unsteadiness in the gait, right? So basically what happens in cerebellar conditions, there could be truncal ataxia. Trunk means like your trunk is what's in your you can say vertebral and the paravertebral areas, right? And your chest and the back simply. Okay. So when we test the gait, remember the cerebellum affect the same side of the body. So basically when you ask them to walk, and if they stagger towards any side, it means that side is affected. For example, if the patient will stagger towards the right side, it means the right side of the cerebellum is affected. If the patient is staggering on both sides, it means that both of the sides of the cerebellum are affected. So if you found, for example, that one side of the cerebellum is affected, like there is unsteadiness on one side, then examine the cranial nerves, especially. Why? Because there are many conditions like cerebellopontine tumors, like the tumors which affect the 5th, 7th, and 8th cranial nerve. Or there is a syndrome called as lateral medullary syndrome. So, like check, like maybe a tumor of this nerves is affecting the cerebellum as well. So that's a very important thing to see in these patients. And then you will see.
That's your balance now. Okay, so if you can just put your arms down.
Now you have seen the Reeboks test in the previous lecture as well. So what is Reeboks test like? See, to maintain our balance, we need the input from the eyes. Like there is a vestibular system in the apparatus in the ear, and as well as the proprioception, which is coming from the joints, right? So first we ask the patient to stand straight, and we stand to the side of the patient so that the patient won't fall. And then we ask the patient to close their eyes, right? And if the patient will close their eyes and they will falling on some side, so it means like it is the proprioception which is not working, or the posterior column, by the way, because proprioception is carried by the posterior columns. But someone who have unsteadiness, who's falling on any side with the eyes open, it means like he said he got a cerebellum problem. So you see, this is a test of proprioception rather than cerebellar disease, right? So you got the point?
Side and your feet together. That's great. I'm just going to put my arms out if you feel unsteady. So if you
See,
just
he's holding
close
the
your eyes
patient
for me now.
because he don't want the patient to fall on any side, right? So that's
And
why
open
he's
up.
holding the patient on the side. So now he's checking the
I'm
patient's
just going to ask you
posture.
to repeat a few words for me to test your speech, okay? The first one is British Constitution
British Constitution.
and baby hippopotamus.
Baby hippopotamus.
Just going to ask you to...
Okay, now what is this? See, as I told you, in cerebellar condition there is dysarthria, because when you speak, when you talk, basically you need a coordinated movement of the muscles by which you are articulating, by which you are moving your tongue, your lips, and everything. Like one of the way which neurologists do is like, remember whenever we talk, it involves three things. Like first one is production of voice, like ah, okay. Then we have to articulate, we have to change the sound by the help of our lips and the tongue. So if we want to catch, where is the issue? And the third thing, of course, is dysphasia, which is like the language in your brain, the Broca's area and the Wernicke's area. But if you want to see, like someone have the problem with the palatal muscles or pharyngeal muscles, you can ask them to say ka ka ka. So see, the sound comes from the pharyngeal muscles. And if you want to see, like if there is any problem with the tongue, so say da da da. So it needs like tongue. And if you want to see the problem is with the lip muscles, you can say ba ba ba, because that needs the use of lip muscles. So what happens in the patients of cerebellum, they have this arthria and their speech is basically jerky, explosive, and loud, with irregular separations of the syllabus or of the words. So that's why, he said, can you say British Constitution or baby hippopotamus, right? But of course, like you can't use these words like in every language. So every language have their own words. For example, you can also ask the patient to say West Register Street. So these are few famous words, like when we are examining any patient whose native language is English or who is an educated person, he knows English, then you can ask them to say British Constitution, West Register Street, or baby hippopotamus, right? And of course, like you can see how a cerebellar patient, they say these things, of course, by searching on YouTube or anywhere which you like that, and you will write, what is explosive scanning or what is cerebellar speech. So there are videos of real patient. Of course, this is a normal patient.
Follow my finger with your eyes. Try and keep your head as still as you can. Okay. So now if you can...
Okay, so as you know, what is nystagmus, right? So nystagmus are basically jerky movements of the eyes. And nystagmus not just present in the cerebellar conditions, rather they can be present in ear problems, and they can also be present in brainstem disorders, right? Of course, this guy is following his own sequence of examination, but many of the people, when they do cerebellum examination, they start with nystagmus. So always look for nystagmus. Usually jerky horizontal nystagmus. There are two types of nystagmus, like the horizontal nystagmus and there is vertical nystagmus also. So like in cerebellar conditions, there is jerky horizontal nystagmus, in which the amplitude is increased when you look towards the side of the lesion. What it means, if this patient have cerebellar condition on the right side, so the nystagmus will come when the patient will look on the right side. If this patient have the cerebellar condition related to the left side, the nystagmus will be produced when she is going to look on the left side. And whenever we observe nystagmus, we always check the direction of the fast movement. And the direction of the fast movement is basically is the side of the lesion. Okay, so many examiners, when they examine cerebellar conditions, they examine it like this way. The first thing they see the nystagmus, the second thing they see the speech, and the third thing they do and examine the upper limbs, and then they in the upper limbs they can do the dysdiadochokinesia finger nose test, and they can look for the tremors. Okay, so this is also a way. By the way, both ways are fine. Like this one, like what I'm saying, like how I would examine a patient like of cerebellar uh, conditions, I will be doing. He's also, by the way, going in the same way. Like he examined the walking first, but what I will do, because the patient is sitting next to you, so you can just start and examining the eyes, then the speech. See, the patient is in front of you. You can see her or his body. You can see the eyes first, examine the eyes first, then come down, the mouth comes, assess the speech, come down, the upper limbs comes, examine the upper limbs, come down, the legs will come, examine the legs, and then ask the patient to walk.
Touch my finger with your index finger of your right hand, and touch your nose, and touch my finger again, and keep going back and forth. Good. Good. And the same with the other finger on the other hand. And touch your nose. That's great. Now if you can put your arms out straight for me like this. Okay, and if you can close your eyes. And I'm going to push down on your arms on either side. Just try and keep your arms up for me. So I'm just going to move your arm around now. If you let me just take the weight, and let it just go floppy. Have you got any pain in your arm at all?
No.
Okay, that's fine. Okay, and the same on the other side. Can you place one of your hands on top of the other like this for me, and just turn the top hand over, and just turn it back over again, and just keep doing that back and forth. That's it, as quick as you can. Good. And the same with the other side, so put your hand on top of it, turn it over, and keep going back and forth as quick as you can. Good. So I'm going to test your reflexes now.
Okay, now see, when he examined the upper limb, actually I would like to add some things in this one. What he checked was rebound phenomena, right? Now, if I will do the same exam in the upper limb, what I will ask the patient to extend the arms, and I will also look for the pronator drift, which I show you in the previous video. Okay, so what I told you, like we asked the patient to extend their arms, and like we check like how the arms are going. Okay, and in cerebellar conditions, there could be upward arm drift, as I told you in the previous one. There was an example for stroke, and of course, like hypotonia, he checked, which is one of the feature for cerebellar conditions. Then one of the things which should be checked is finger nose test, right? So when, like the same thing which I showed you in the previous video, ask the patient to touch the nose and then touch the examiner finger, okay? And in that one, you can also check for the intention tremors, which basically increases as the patient approaches the target. And this is because of, cerebellar connections in the brain stem. And we can also notice the past pointing thing, like the patient overshoots the target. And he checked the dysdiadochokinesia, which are the rapid alternating movements. Okay. So the thing which he checked, which is called as Reeboks Phenomena. So see, we asked the patient to lift the arm like this, what he saw, and then one other way is like we ask the patient to what you can say, lift the arm quickly from the side and then stop. Okay. So basically, in cerebellar condition, if they have cerebellar condition, there is incoordination in the agonist and antagonist muscles, and the patient basically just stop there. They fail to stop the arm. Like if I will say you, like raise your hand quickly, and I will say stop, so you will stop right there. But if cerebellar condition is there, and your agonist and antagonist muscles are not working fine, or there's incoordination, so you will find it hard to stop, rather you will overshoot. That is called as the rebound phenomena. So one of the ways, like like he is explaining her and she's doing, but in real life, in the real patient setup, it's not like this, like you will just give one command and the patient will catch instantly. Rather, sometimes you have to do the movements in front of the patient just to let them know what to do, right?
It's going to involve me just tapping your knees on both sides. Okay. Okay, so now if you can just swing your legs round on the bed. That's it, and just lie down. If you can just place this heel on that knee for me, and then just run it down the front of your leg, lift it up, and then go back to the knee, and just keep doing that. That's great. And just relax. Now if you can take this heel and put it on that knee, run it down your leg, lift it up, and just keep doing that. Thank you very much. That completes the exam.
Thank you.
Okay, now, again, I want to add few things. He checked the reflexes, and what happens is basically there is hyporeflexia in cerebellar conditions, right? One more thing which he checked was, one more thing which he checked was coordination, right? Like the heel chin test. He did it in a different way. Like he said, like go all the way down and then pick it up and then put it near the knee and then go down again, right? This is also correct in the previous video. You have seen, that is also correct. Both ways are correct, okay? But I want to add one thing over here. He must have checked the tone in the lower limbs as well. Okay, so because the tone which he checked in the upper limb, the same thing he must check in the lower limb as well. And of course, he have checked the coordination. Okay. And one of the way, we can ask the patient to lift the big toe up to touch your finger, or you can say the finger nose test type of test in the lower limb, but that is not done clinically, by the way. Just to see the intention tremors in the leg, okay. And we can also ask the patient to tap each heel on the other shin, okay, to check the rapid movements in the lower limbs. But again, that is not checked, like that is just checking the upper limb. So this thing is important. Few more things which I will add here is like you can do ophthalmoscopy to check for macular edema. Why? Because due to increased intracranial pressure, that it can be there. And like there are many other things we can check, but like that is a little advanced level of things. For example, when we do cerebellar examination, we do search for any signs of malignancies, because paraneoplastic syndromes occur and they can damage the cerebellum. And if, for example, one-sided of cerebellum problems are there, so we look for any syndrome, so we go for upper limb neurological examination as well as lower limb neurological examination. So that's it, guys. This is like all about cerebellum examination. And remember that there are important connections of cerebellum with other lobes, with the midbrain, with the hindbrain, with the brainstem. Okay. So, and remember, like, whenever the cerebellum problems are there, so it can lead to coordination problems, verbal fluency can be disturbed, problems with speech, problems with memory, and all these features, they can come with cerebellum problems. So I hope you understand these things. If you have any questions, you can write in comments or you can contact me. Thank you.